schools, and my children were not being subjected to this gradual subversion coming into the schools about 1960 and 61. When I moved to Australia, I thought it would be a great idea. Send them to Catholic school. By gosh, I can do this again. And so I did. And about a year later, they came around and showed me what they were using for texts in religion class. It wasn't the catechism. It was nothing that had anything to do with the Catholic Church. It was a publication put out every month. And the boys at the school, which was St. Leo's in Wahroonga, Sydney, Australia, would take this paper out to the cricket ground and burn it ceremonially. So they didn't believe it either.
So they knew what was going on.
Yes. Well, I took a look at this stuff, and I got into it with the cardinal, who had just been made a cardinal then, Freeman. And he referred me here and referred me there because he couldn't do anything about it. He wasn't very bright. I sent him in long, Australian pages. They're a bit longer than the 11. It's about 8 1/4 by 14 instead. And I filled up 8 pages of that with heresies I culled out of this publication, this periodical. It came out 10 times or 11 times a year. They broke for Christmas. So, he didn't answer me. One way he said, "We're not here to jam religion down these boys' throats." And I thought to myself, what are you there for? This is why they go to Catholic school, to get their religion. Whether it's jammed down their throats or what, they've got to get it. And they were not getting it. So I got into the battle with him, and the next thing you know, I found out that there was a real mass around somewhere. I hadn't noticed so much. I've been traveling. I hadn't noticed the changes so much. I used to wonder, for instance, why did the Irish take this lying down? And what it comes down to is that they were given the old patriotic approach. And their vernacular was not English, it was Gaelic, and most of them don't speak it or understand it too well. So, anyway, that's all by the way. But in Australia, they were the first to go vernacular. And the translations, of course, were wretched. And then I found the Latin Mass Society and joined it and found out things are much worse than I had thought. So then I got into it for fair, objecting to that what they call the Novus Ordo Missae, the new order of Mass, which came in 1969 and replaced all these translations that were going here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, that's the key. They didn't just take it out of Latin into English or Spanish. They then changed it. And then from that change, we move forward 30 years, and popes are calling, Pope John Paul II, Ratzinger, the new guy, they're calling for a new world order. They're calling hundreds of religions to the Vatican and saying they're all the same. I mean, this is 180 degrees from what's in the Bible. How did this happen in such a short space of time historically?
Well, mostly it was the communist tactic. We educate the young, or miseducate the young, or fail to educate the young, so that we have 2 or 3 generations now which have never seen the Catholic Church in action. When Pius XII left us in 1958, I was 40 years old. I knew my church. I'd been raised Catholic. All my instruction and all my formal schooling was Catholic. And I got in the Army, and I was the target for everybody. You want to argue religion? Go see Gibson. And I will have to say, with a great deal of pride, that I never lost an argument. But they all wound up saying to me, "Oh, you Catholics are all alike. You're a bunch of sheep. You just do what you're told." And I always said, "Nonsense. I know exactly what I believe and why." But I've figured out now that most people did not have my education. in spite of going through the Catholic schools. Of course, when I got out, having argued with all these people, I realized I hadn't picked up enough. So I went into it in earnest, and I have quite a library of Catholic books and encyclopedias and dictionaries and various types of Bibles. I've got everything you could imagine here that fills a double garage. It used to be.
Well, there's no debating. I mean, you can debate in the past all day long, but there's no debating now that the Catholic Church is a pure instrument, and I know you would say it isn't really the Catholic Church, of world government. Move us forward to Ratzinger. You start writing books. You start speaking out. You fingered Ratzinger a long time ago.
Well, he was
as a prime mover.
He was one of these, what they call Parity at Vatican II. Experienced man. It's the same word. Imperio. So he was there advising all these bishops that had been called together, most of whom seemed to have left their brains outside the door and gone in and taken all this. There's one thing you can say about Vatican II. In contrast to all ages of the Catholic Church and its councils and its doctrines and its accurate and explicit phraseology, you find Vatican II, which put out more than the largest council we had before, which put out more than all the councils together before that. This is a great bank of fog. Nobody can figure out what it means. It contradicts itself internally. It promotes heresies which had been condemned by the Church. And, well, Ratzinger was there. He was right there in the beginning. He was helping out to put it over on these bishops.
Now fast-forwarding.
Then he advanced through the Church, and he wound up as a so-called cardinal and a so-called bishop, and put in charge of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which is a change in name, of course, from the Congregation of the Holy Office.
And so he got in a key position over the canons and the doctrine.
Yes, that's correct. He was they're in charge, and while they're in charge, he promoted a book and wrote the preface for it called, what is it? It was put out by the Pontifical Biblical Commission, and the title of the book is The Hebrew People and Their Holy Scriptures in the Christian Bible. And then he proceeded to deduce that we should listen to this, we should accept them because they may be right. Now, if they are right, then we are wrong.
Basically, it's what the Pharisees were saying to Christ. He's saying the Pharisees might be the good guys.
Yes, that's it. They could be right. These Masoretic scriptures, which, of course, they had in their hands and eliminated anything they found distasteful to them over, well, almost 2 millennia now. We are supposed to take their slant on it because, I guess, because they understand Hebrew. But it comes right down to it. As St. Paul says, if Christ be not risen, then is our faith vain. Well, and we and they disagree on the central fact of history.
Well, we know, Hutton Gibson, where they're going with this because now there's no pretense. I mean, the Ratzinger's openly saying New World Order, one world religion. I mean, this guy's talking like the Antichrist now.
He certainly is. And he gets crazier by the day. He even goes to Istanbul, and while he's there on another attack, he receives these Muslims, and of course it was staged. Nothing is done by accident there. He goes to their mosque, and he's there, I guess, with his shoes off, during their prayer time. So it was no shock to him that they were going to pray 5 times a day. They do this, and he joins in.
Hutton, stay there. We've got a break. I want to come back and talk about when you believe the Masonic order